Hi, welcome to Park University's Outside the Wire podcast. I'm Kyle.
I'm Danny.
I'm Matt.
And we're here to discuss the transition out of the military. Both the positives, the negatives, as well as things we think could be improved upon while getting out. So I'll start off with you, Matt. What were your positives through your experience of getting out?
I had one, and that was actually like just meeting so many people and networking. Honestly, the way the Marine Corps transitioning works is not very well. You get maybe a week. You could go back, but it was hit or miss if your command likes you or not. And then, even then, transitioning out from the unit itself and checking out, it's a pain.
What about you, Danny?
I think the only real positive from my unit now processing was they signed me up or helped me sign up for the VA benefits. They walked me through the paperwork to get me started on that. By the time I got out, it was like 4 months-ish when my benefits started.
Oh, shoot, that's sweet. Yeah, I didn't get all that necessarily, but I did. I think the biggest positive for me was just I had good people around me who were kind of supporting me along the way, whether it be just my NCO or even like the people who same rank as me, just helping me through the process and trying to let me know what I should do.
But see, that's a command difference thing. Because just because that was your command does not make it Danny's command, does not make it my command or any other service member's command. Yeah. Because they're one, they do definitely play favorites.
Yeah.
And B, if you're in a large unit, they're definitely not getting that detailed talk with you that they might have with someone else.
Oh, 100%. I think it's about the connection that you have with the people around you. If you're well liked, for sure you're going to get a little bit more help than somebody else who's not. But I don't know. The tough part is with the transition, you really only get about a week, honestly, training. So within a week's time, you're thrown all this information that you're supposed to remember and gather, and then you, at least on the active duty side, and then you just forget it right after you're done with it.
For me, for my week of transitioning, where they send us the whole, we called it TAPS. Yeah. If I remember what's called correctly, I know we get it mixed up with the armies, but one day for VA stuff. They don't help you do your VA claim. They just tell you all about all the amazing benefits the VA claims to do for you. And then it's a completely different challenge when you get out, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah. You get one day with Department of Labor, and then you work on your elevator pitch, work on your resume, and that's it. You're done. And so it's like, at what point am I getting enough?
Right.
I don't know if it's because I was guard, or I don't know if it was because I was being out processed for medical reason, but I didn't have a week. I had 2 days. I was given a piece of paper with a checklist of go here, speak to this department. I was given X amount of time to go see medical, go see dental, go see psychological, make sure, all the boxes are checked there. Go turn in your equipment. The only people that really sat down for any period of time with me were the people that helped me with my VA stuff.
So was that your actual unit, or was that like a separate department?
That was somebody connected to my unit. I don't know if she was actually a part of the unit itself.
Okay, because I know for me, they didn't help me with my claim at all either. But like for us, we had similar to you, but instead of 2 days, we had, I believe it was 30 days. Is when you're doing all your checkout lists. We had a similar checkout list that was separate from that week. And I made it a point. I told them, I'm not doing anything until I get there. And I went to the DAV, and they looked over all my medical documentation after I got it. They looked over all my dental records. They helped me. They walked me through the steps to get my disability claim. And even then, I got out in April of 19. I didn't get any sort of disability compensation until September.
I didn't get any type of VA claim while I was in because my unit was on rotation in Korea, and then once I came back earlier than the rest of them to meet my ETS date, so it kind of didn't fall in the right line for me. So I definitely know there's other people like me who had this similar experience where nobody really cared when we came back. So it was just kind of on us to be able to get that type of information, whether it be after you already get out or if you know about it beforehand, you're lucky and you can get it done.
I'm saying that's the issue. It's like, why isn't this more of, hey, make sure you understand this? You don't have to do it. We're not going to force you to do it. But why aren't we discussing it more? Why aren't commands like, hey, go do this?
Right.
The lack of involvement and the lack of caring knowledge, I think, is part of it, because commands, they've been in their entire life for a good chunk of it.
Yeah.
Why should they care? Especially if you're not one of their favorites, they're not going to sit there and go out of their way. They're going to give you the bare minimum. And this isn't all commands, but this is predominantly what happens is the poor command system will be like, I don't like you, so I'm going to do the bare minimum. I remember my first sergeant saying, I'll talk to you here in a little bit. Saw my checklist, never heard from him again. Now, granted, I was on their poo-poo list because I got NJP'd.
Yeah.
Because I drunk one night, but yet we have the higher ups can get away with what they want. They see no repercussions. And when they get out, they have a whole month-long transitioning classes that they can go take because they have a whole laundry list of benefits, but they take care of their own and not take care of the junior and CO level enlisted.
Yeah. I think I think the one thing that gets lost in all of it is the fact that, like, we don't, once somebody finds out or your command finds out that you're not going to re-enlist, it's just a spinning ball of like, okay, we're going to put them on this so that they're out of our way. We're going to put them on this so they're out of our way, and then even if you don't get put in that scenario, there's not enough people giving you the right information or even information at all. So you're stuck in a situation where you're trying to ask people for help, but they don't know, or they got told something else by somebody and now you believe the wrong thing. So I think that's where it kind of gets like lost in the sauce pretty much. It's just it not being like provided, and nobody who's still in the majority of people who are still in haven't gotten out. So they don't necessarily know all the steps to be able to, and what the Army's trying to do with SFL TAP, I think is a great idea. And it's the same thing that you were talking about, TAPS. I think it's a really good idea where we try to give people the information who are getting out to try to transition, but inevitably, like, it all comes down to what are the resources that are coming from behind it, and like who's giving this information, as well as like, can we spread it out in a timely manner where you can actually comprehend and understand what you're being told.
I think the concepts there, like having those courses, and I'm perfectly fine with the whole, hey, you're not re-enlisting, okay, get out of our way, because you still, at the end of the day, there's still a mission that the command has to reach. I get that, you have to purchase that. But instead of just sending me to go do some random, hey, go work this random rifle range and pick up brass, or go rake sand, just to get out of our way, why don't you be like, hey, go to this course, or go to this career fair. Hey, let's get you the stuff we need. And like, I don't know if that needs to be a separate person inside the battalion, company, regiment, whatever, to sit there and supervise them. Like, hey, here's all these different events that are going on. Let's send all your transitioning service members there to go learn, instead of making them play stupid games. Yeah. But there's the concepts there. It's just not being implemented the way it should, in my opinion.
Honestly, the military is really good at getting you in the door, getting you trained for your job, and then retention has some issues. But it's really good when you're still there. It'll be able to answer your questions, help you get into school, use your benefits while you're there, yada, yada, yada. There's nothing in place for out processing.
No.
It's like, there needs to be some more emphasis. Something, I don't know whether it needs to be a whole separate program or what, but there just needs to be more to it.
Well, that, and like not even more yet. I do agree with you, there needs to be more that goes down the road, but like uniformity across the DoD on like how transitioning should work. Yeah. Because we've talked offline, you had to choose between what, education and
it was
career?
Between educational transition or job training. So it was one or the other. So when it came to, like, I guess in the mindset that I was in, I was like, oh, I'm just going to go to school. But I didn't really think about needing a resume because, I mean, I still needed income when I got out. So that was tough because I didn't have the ability to have them help me with a resume or anything because I chose the educational way, which helped me kind of get into school and everything. But when it comes to it, you kind of need both. So you having to choose one or the other, I think is kind of a messed up thing because you kind of need both in like civilian life.
Yeah, I don't know a single veteran that's gotten out that's not been medically separated. So they're still waiting for their disability rating if they applied for one.
Yeah.
So there's no telling how much compensation is going to come from that. They could be going to school, but unless you're living in a place where you're not paying little to no rent, you kind of need a job because you got bills to pay. And if you're like me who didn't really have any financial planning, you racked up a lot of credit cards. I still have those credit cards to pay off.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect. There's what does the VA actually provide for me? I had no idea how to get into VA medical when I first got it. I had no idea about VA life insurance until I found out on my own. I had no idea about different educational benefits with the VA. I had no idea how to pay electricity bills or I knew how to pay, but I didn't know where do I go to find it? Where do I go to find car insurance outside of USAA for me? Like all these different things that are so required for the civilian world that we just don't get taught because we've lived in a world where it's like, hey, you're going to do this is how it's done. It's so structured and it's so removed.
You get told
to aspects.
what to do.
Like there's certain overlaps, but not everything correlates.
Yeah.
I realized that I was guard, so I'm already the civilian military, like walking that tightrope. But there was none of that. There was no resume stuff. There was no setting up for once you leave the service. It was just, you're out, bye.
See, and that's, you know what? That's the thing that happens a lot with people is like you're just a check in the box. You did your transition course, regardless of if you're actually retaining the information, regardless of if the people that are giving you the information even were correct or like patient actually teaching you properly. That's another thing with the resumes. They don't teach you how to correlate what you did in the service to a resume. It took me years to figure out how to translate everything I did while in to a civilian resume. Federal resume, you can kind of get away with using certain terms and certain analogies.
Right.
But in a civilian resume, I can't sit there and say I earned this award and this award and this award. I have to break it down, Barney style, and word it in some different kind of way to represent some sort of skill.
Right. Just kind of switch it up to where it makes sense in the civilian world. Because, yeah, I mean, we've got so many terms and phrases in the military where it's like they don't add up. They don't make sense.
They don't even add up across the DoD.
Exactly.
The Army calls the sexual assault and harassment thing.
Yeah.
Army calls it SHARP.
Yeah.
We call our sapper, and we had a field day with it because we actually had a Marine named Sharp. So that was a fun one.
Yeah. No, it's just a big mix up, and then I just don't think the information is really well given out to people. But yeah, and then you were talking about financial planning. I think that is one of the biggest things when it comes to transitioning. People don't realize when you get to that point and you're making that decision and you have less than a year left, that's your make or break right there. Because I mean, when you're in the military, you're getting paid well. As much as people say you're not getting paid well, you're getting paid pretty decently.
You're getting paid decently considering all the benefits you're getting with it.
Yeah, and then altogether, you've got to prepare to not have that paycheck anymore. So,
but you've also what's the stereotype? Every new boot goes out and buys a Dodge Charger with a 40% interest rate because they don't think about it when they get into it.
See, that's not a stereotype. I've seen plenty of Marines do that.
There are plenty of people who do
I think
it's a stereotype for a reason.
We had to ban Marines from buying a car from this one dealership, and for whatever reason, other Marines working there. So now, not only do you have other Marines screwing over other Marines with high ass interest rates, but now you gotta sit there. My rule of thumb was go 30, 40 minutes away from base, go to that dealership. They'll still understand everything, but they won't sit there. They're not as greedy or manipulative as some other
keen
dealerships.
to get some more money out of your pocket.
I mean, I get it. Hey, I want more money. As
Yeah.
much as I love money, but money's not everything.
Yeah. No, I just think there needs to be, I mean, whether people listen or not, that is what it is, but I think there should be more of they had, when I was getting out of the Army, they had a financial planning like kind of class where you like made your own budget and everything, but that budget changes. So when you make that first budget, that's when you're getting paid by the military. So you've got to account for that budget without your pay from the military, because like life comes real fast. Things happen. Like I was out for a month of the military and my truck gets stolen. I could have never expected that to happen, but you know, it happened. So luckily I was prepared, but I know a majority of people aren't prepared for if something were to happen like that. They're not prepared by any means. So there's got to be some type of either training or class or something to be able to make sure that people getting out like have an actual plan. Because you can say you have a plan and all that, you can say you have this set up and all that, but like when you get to that moment, things change like that. It's an instant.
No plans ever work.
Yeah.
And
like I had plenty of plans and they just fell apart. So
that's one thing. And you know what? I'll say this is a positive, at least for the Marine Corps. When we're doing the transition, they made sure you have a place to stay. Like you put it on record.
yeah.
And if you don't, they will either A, get you with the VA and get you in the VA's homeless program, which will give you a place to stay when you get out, or B, they straight up will not let you. They will put you on hold, administrative hold, so you don't get out until we get a plan figured out for you. And I commend them for that, but that plan also isn't universal. If you're getting forced out, they're not going to hold off to make sure you're okay.
Exactly.
Whether it's a medical reason or it's you got so fucked up that they had to force you out, but they don't wait for you. And I get it. If you're getting forced out because you messed up, cool, I'm not going to wait for you.
Right. It takes a lot to be able to.
But if you're being medically discharged for XYZ, there should be, that hold should still apply to you as well. We should still make sure that you're good before you transition out. Because if you're transitioning out and you're already alone, they built you back up just enough to transition you out, but you have no sort of like foundation when you get out, you're just going to go straight back down, if not lower.
Right. No, I agree completely. Yeah. I think it's just got to kind of become a universal thing where we just make sure that everybody's taken care of, regardless. Like, I understand the getting kicked out part, that's different. But when you said it comes to medical and it comes to just you hitting your ETS date, like somebody's got to be there to make sure. Because there aren't a lot of people who are financially sound, like in general, or have a plan financially. But there's got to be something to where the DoD, the military, has to like actually set something to where it makes sense. And if people don't want to follow it, that is what it is, you know. But at least there'll be something to where you can feel okay if you're going to get out. You know, you can feel like you're going to be prepared for what's going to happen.
I mean, for me, it hit to the point where I pulled my TSP out early. I couldn't afford, like, we had to do a budget for a couple months out before we could find a job. But because I had no resume helping skills, like we had a brief, like 1-day course, which really didn't, because you're teaching that to an entire classroom of 30-ish people. It's not as simple as it sounds. And yeah, I figured it out eventually. But it took me like 3-4 months to get a job after getting out. And I bounced around until I found the career I'm in now, where I've been for 3 years. But it took me a long bit to get there.
Yeah. I think it's
What?
Oh yeah. Well, I think something that doesn't get talked about when you're in is the fact that networking in the civilian world is even more so, and it matters so much more so than the military world. Because in the military world, you're set by ranks and all that. Like, yes, you need to network with people from different units so that you can like get help on that end. Like, hey, I'll help you, you help me. But when it comes to the civilian world, like it's a completely different ballgame. You got to learn how to talk to people. You got to be able to get information as well as have something to give as well. Like, it can't just be them giving you information. You've got to be able to produce something as well. But I don't think the military really like helps you with that too much. But I think it could have something set in place where at the end of the day, you feel better about talking to some random person about something that you know that they're really good at, and just trying to get some better information. And hey, I'll help you out with this. You help me out with that.
Well, even then, networking, even while in, is still was very prevalent, at least in my perspective.
Yeah.
But it was really only done a lot by staff NCOs and officers.
Right.
That's how I got orders to so many places. That's how I still have contacts with some high up individuals just because of networking.
Right.
Shoot, I went to a change of command that one of my buddies just happened to be his nephew. And so they all invited me out. I'm sitting there rubbing shoulders with colonels and generals.
Right.
Like, this is something that a little E4 corporal me did not think would happen. And out in the civilian world, that's how I got my job I'm currently in. I simply asked a question to someone randomly, and they're like, hey, why don't you come over and we can talk about some stuff? And then they offered me a job that same day, after I passed the background check, of course.
Yeah. No, I think it needs to be, because I agree with you, very much so. On the officer side and the NCO side, I think it's a little bit more prevalent, where you talk to other NCOs or you talk to other officers, so that you kind of, when you do get out, you have a better idea of, hey, this guy's got my back and I can talk to him. I think LinkedIn,
Phenomenal.
Yeah, but that needs to be more of a focus. It needs to be something where, hey, this thing really works. If you get on LinkedIn and you just start chatting on there and you start posting on there and all that, you start talking on people's pages, that will help you in so many ways, because random people will message you and be like, oh, really? That's what you think? Okay.
I mean, LinkedIn is how I found LinkedIn and my boss. That's how I found out that veterans with Folds of Honor, I'm not sure if they're partnering with the Royals this year, but last year they give 4 free tickets a game out to veterans, and all you have to do is reach out and ask, all through networking.
Right.
And so me and some buddies went to a Royals game last year for free, and all I had to do was wear a Folds of Honor shirt and give them a little brief blurb on who you are in your service, and that's it. And those are pretty nice seats too, to be honest. They're low down next to third base.
Oh yeah, you're close up? I haven't been that close up at a Royals game, but
When I got out, the only people I still even have on my stuff from my days are people from my basic training flight.
Really?
My entire unit basically just sort of.
But I get that though, because you were guard, so you weren't with them 24/7.
Yeah.
The camaraderie just isn't.
No, I wouldn't say the camaraderie isn't there. It's just you're kind of living a double life. You have both your civilian and your military life. So the whole mentality of embrace the suck hits differently with you than it would with me or Kyle. Yeah. Just because that was our life 24/7. So I still talk to some buddies from Korea. I still talk to some people from Korea that are Korean nationals. Why? Because it's just that level of camaraderie built.
Yeah.
Now, once I got out, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for this one vet I met when I was working at the casino. He came through my line. We talked about our service for a little bit. Turns out he's a veteran services coordinator here in Kansas City. And he's like, well, why aren't you involved with these educational benefits? Because I don't know about the educational benefits.
And that's the downfall of transitioning. Where is the educational knowledge coming from?
Yeah.
Everything comes from word of mouth, and that's why networking is so important.
Right. No, I agree completely.
Because I had no idea about vocational rehab until I spoke to another veteran.
Yeah.
And it is phenomenal. I love it. It's perfect for me. But it's a benefit that might not be perfect for everyone. It's one of those things it's better to know and not even need it than to not know about something at all.
Right.
It's worked well for me so far.
Another aspect of networking nowadays is social media, because you brought up LinkedIn, but there's TikTok, which may or may not get banned.
But I mean, as long as it's still there, like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, yeah,
But how many veterans have you sit there and seen on social media that make reels that are probably making money? I don't know their financials,
Right.
but I can tell you I see their videos. Like when I'm on my little scrolling binge on the toilet for an hour while I'm trying to push one out, I'm like, I've seen the same person 3, 4, 5 times,
Yeah.
but it's all different videos. And it's just that's how much is popping up. So I can imagine just how much exposure he's getting and how much networking they're getting, to the point that even Vet TV became a thing.
Yeah.
Where that's all social media and networking. Because I guarantee you, he could not have done all that on his own.
Yeah.
But thanks to him and thanks to networking and stuff, we're able to be here. Like, we're able to actually put this up and have this platform to be able to talk to people.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
We're
Yeah.
able to put out these benefits like that people don't know about, as long as they're able to find our channel.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. And that's the big thing that we're trying to do is get that outreach to where we are able to provide that type of information. Like when I was in the service, I didn't hear anything about chapter 31 vocational rehab. Like I didn't hear a single thing about that. So that's why we're here, is to kind of break down that type of educational purposes, as well as, just the things that vets go through.
And advocate.
Yeah, to try to advocate for everybody. I know it's tough. It's not an easy process to go through, and we're gonna try to make the stepping stones a little bit easier. So, when it comes to the social media, I think obviously that kind of intertwines with the advertising of yourself. LinkedIn, like I touched on and we were talking about, I think that is the biggest self-advertising, like perfect platform for yourself to be able to network and like reach out to people that you may never have heard or seen from before.
A lot of people think self-advertising, like, oh, look at me, look at all this. No, it's simply building your personal brand.
Right.
For you, what your major is that you're self-advertising yourself in that profession.
Yeah.
Same thing with you, same thing with me, same thing with anyone. We're all just trying to advertise ourselves in a light to get to the points that we want. It is self-advertising. It's just done differently than what people might think of, like, oh, I'm a model, I have to advertise. Or, oh, I'm trying to be an actor. Well, bless the Marines that have done it. I love watching the movies, even if they're crap movies. I will watch it just to support them.
Yeah.
Which none of theirs are crap so far.
Yeah, no, I just think it needs to kind of become a more like common thing, because with the presence of social media, like your image is always out there now. So regardless of what image you want that to be, I think you kind of need to set it in a light of the path that you're trying to go down, as well as the career you're trying to go. If you want to be a social media influencer, obviously you're going to be super intertwined with social media. But if you're going to be a marketing person, you're going to need to know that even more so too. Like, you're going to need to know how people interact with things on social media, because that's the day we live in today.
You have to learn the matrix algorithm.
Right. So I think like having that when you do transition, I think it's super important to understand that and be able to connect with people on the outside and in the civilian world, so that you can kind of get a better idea of what you need to do in your own personal life to make your path easier. Because right now you're just starting off where it's hard and you don't know what you're going to do. Even if you do, it's still a question mark, because you've been in the military for however long. So I think that is a super important thing that people need to focus on a little bit. I'm not a big social media person. I don't really post very often, but having LinkedIn and all that's kind of made me a little bit better about posting and talking to people.
I need to get better on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I have it. I just don't use it.
Right. Super important.
Dude, LinkedIn's such a phenomenal tool. Like, for finding jobs, no.
Yeah.
I can't remember the statistic, but it's like maybe 10% actually get jobs off LinkedIn when they do just the find jobs. But finding who the hiring manager is, messaging them, and networking that way is phenomenal. And because you're like, and again, this is where it comes self-advertising. It's the same thing as a resume, just more
personal.
more personal, more 3D than a grayscale piece of paper.
Right, because you're talking to somebody. You're not having a computer go through and scan the correct words that you put in a resume and all that. It's more, hey, like, I'm trying to look to do this. Like, what do I need to do? Or, hey, I have this type of experience. Is there anything open at your place to work? You know, anything. I think that's why it's super, super important for people transitioning to be able to have that platform and be ready to use it, because it's so useful. Even if you're going into school, you having that profile for however long, it will just assist you once you get done with school.
I mean, I'm not going to say their name, but in our office, they are sitting there making their LinkedIn at this very moment. I'm like, oh, go connect with me.
Right.
Like, it's not going to have any benefit impact right now, and it might not be very clear what a benefit impact would be, just because we're in two completely different fields of degrees. But that connection and the number of connections, because maybe, hey, I might need to reach out, be like, hey, you're working for this business that has this philanthropy work that it does. I need access to that because I'm trying to do X, Y, Z. So there's always secondary and tertiary reasonings for things. It's not always just here's what it is and here's how it is.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think the educational part of it, because I went through the educational training, getting out of the Army and everything. So with that, I think there was a lot of good information in that training, that week long. I know it's a little bit different because I was active duty, so I got a little bit different of an experience. But I think there was a lot of good information. But even then, I didn't know about all the different types of resources and different types of things I'm going to need to be able to go to school. So when I came here to Park and went on my visit and they kind of broke it down to me, I was like, oh shoot, I didn't even know I needed that. I didn't even know I needed to apply on va.gov to get my COE. I didn't know that. You know, I think there's a lot of good information, but you don't really know it until you kind of get there, even going through the classes. So at the end of the day, I think we're all just kind of starting at step one. So I think if we can improve that process to at least start at step two, it would help people tremendously.
Like, I feel like there's a lot of us that didn't even know that there was a process.
Yeah.
Like, you sort of see that there's things out there, but there's no step to get to that spot. Or at least for me personally, it was never expressed to me that there was a step to get to this spot.
Right.
So kind of like what you were saying with the educational training, like, it'd be really nice to have something like that for not just active duty, but for the Guard too.
Yeah.
Now, again, I was medically discharged, so it might have been expedited a little bit faster.
Possibly, yeah.
That's
Benefit of the doubt there, but still, I should have been given
something.
There should have been that stop hold that we discussed earlier,
Right.
to make sure, like, hey, hold on, let's make sure we get this done right. Let's make sure we're not doing him a disservice, which sounds like they did. Like, for me, I had no idea about vocational rehab until I talked to another veteran, which it's not called vocational rehab. It's veteran readiness and employment. I'm going to call it voc rehab because that's what I know it as.
Yeah.
What it's called, be damned. But it's not an educational benefit, but it can lead to educational benefits.
Right.
Which is,
That's
I know
for
it's
the
a
purpose
conundrum, but that goal is to get a job.
Right.
And how they help you is they do a whole bunch of career aptitude tests and all left, right, center, make sure everything's good. Like, okay, well, you need a degree for this. Are we going to approve you? Yes or no? If they approve you, cool, you're now going to school without using your GI Bill.
Yeah.
And if they're like, no, you don't need to go to school. Okay, now you're going through resume courses. Now we're helping you get the jobs. Now we're helping you figure out how to word things. And that's where that in-depth training comes from.
Right.
That's not given, that should have been given when you're getting out.
Right. Yeah, when I got out, I didn't even hear about that. I didn't hear about VRE at all. So I think, once I started coming to school, and I found you, that's the first time that I'd ever even heard about it. Even going through all my classes, I had never heard about it. So I think it's just something about being able to have that outreach and tell you, like, hey, this could be available, you know, because you only need what is it? It's like 10% disability.
You need 10% disability rating. There's a couple other things, like you have to have gotten out with no career aspect. So if you're an officer, I'm sorry, but you have a career aspect. If I find out you're in vocational rehab just because you want to go get an extra degree or you just want to use up a resource that's benefit to you, I think it's a little kind of shoddy. But if you genuinely need the benefit, because I'm not gonna say all officers are the same. Like if you genuinely got out with no career aspects and you utilize it, be my guest. But I feel like that's one reason that might not be so common is people take advantage of it.
Oh, probably, yeah. I can definitely see that being something because, I mean, essentially it just replaces, it doesn't replace, but you still have your GI Bill, but it's used, if you need that education, it's used in place of.
Well, that part's new. The whole it not taking away your GI Bill, that just got enacted like a year or two ago. Okay. So it used to actually burden your GI Bill at the same rate, and it changed. And now I'm petitioning to get some of my GI Bill back because of it. That's a conversation for later, but that's a recently changed. What I mean by taking advantage of it is they provide housing allowance benefits for while you're searching for a job. They will help you with resumes, and like if you just need help with a resume, that might not be the program for you. There's other resources, and as much as we'll dog in the VA throughout this podcast, there's a lot of resources that they do have, and when I dog on them, it's because it's the lack of knowledge to get to those resources that irks me. It's not that they don't have resources, it's that there's so much bureaucratic BS to get to those, and the lack of knowledge sharing that creates the chaos of finding benefits that you need.
Right, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Like, if you don't know where to look, you're never going to find it.
It's trying to find a needle in a specific needle in a needle stack.
Yeah. But it's like, with my disability, I have migraines, and it's been difficult for me to keep a job. At one point, I was going through a job like every 6 months. Mm-hmm. So when I was working for the casino, it was the first time I'd held a job for more than like 3 years. And that's when I found the guy who came up and told me about the veterans benefits and stuff like that. But it's like, if I would have known that this existed from the VA, like somebody at hey, you're having migraines like every day. You should probably look for a job that doesn't have you under bright lights all the time.
As
we're sitting under bright lights. But don't worry, I took my meds. I'm okay.
Because that's one thing we don't want, unmedicated veterans.
But if the benefits were talked about by even the doctors, like, hey, look, you're having a lot of migraines because of your job, but because of the stress connected to this, maybe you should look into something else. Hey, have you heard about these vocational benefits? Mm-hmm. It'd be something to talk about, but like you said, nobody talks about it.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's this. I don't even think some veterans know the difference between a Montgomery and a post 9/11, and now the forever post 9/11 GI Bill. Yeah. Because just the other day we were talking to a veteran who lost his 9/11 GI Bill because of time constraint, whereas you and I have the forever one. It's never going to go away. But like some knowledge has to be given, even if it's a basic level. And you know what? My simple solution to the whole thing is find all the VSOs in the area that you're going to. Yeah. Because you know what? They are the ones that will sit there and sit down with you and talk to you. They're the ones that will sit there and tell you all your benefits. Because I honestly think some of them have a joy of screwing the VA over and be like, oh, they don't want to give you this. We're going to find a way to make sure they give you this kind of mentality. And that's the type of mentality you need with the VA.
Oh, yeah.
I've got one on speed dial. If we want him as a guest, I can get him. I can have him on the show.
Yeah. Yes, I want my disability increased.
Okay, all right. I'll put some calls in.
I'm kidding. I'm at 90. I'm good.
Yeah, there's a lot that we need to touch on eventually, but with the transition, I just think there needs to be better information and more clear information to where people have a good understanding of, hey, okay, you need to do this. You need to make sure of this before you get out. Just kind of putting in the stepping stones to make sure that you're not falling on your face as soon as you
But that's what the check-in list is, or checkout list that everyone just signs without actually doing what's supposed to happen.
Exactly.
Is for. So it's like, cool, hey, go talk to this person. Yeah, that's a good step to bring them there.
Yeah.
But be like, hey, go talk to this person. Ask them about X, Y, Z. Tell them your situation. Don't just go there to get a check in the box. Like, go to the library, make sure you don't have any books due. Why is that necessary? I didn't even know my base had a library. Yeah. That's how little information is spread.
No, I agree 100%. Yeah, I mean, the checklist is just kind of I guess, something for them to say that you did something. And that's it.
It's a safety net for the command so they don't get in trouble.
Exactly. But, I mean, I wish and I hope that soon the SFL-TAP or the transition program within all of the military fields have that better type of construct to where it's, okay, it's not just a week before a year or 6 months before you get out. It's, okay, hey, you do this now. It could be education, whatever. You're going to do this for 1 week. And then, hey, you're going to do job training for 1 week. You're going to understand about all your benefits. It doesn't even have to be a week, but it can just be broken up to where you're getting information throughout your process of trying to get out. Instead of, hey, you get this 1 week class, and it's just, if you didn't write it all down or you didn't remember it, well, now you're kind of stuck in a hard place.
Now, don't get me wrong. I hate maps. God, I hate maps. But maybe this should be offered as something for a week's long set of classes at the MEP station, not at your unit. Mm-hmm. Take it completely out of your unit's hands and put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Well, see, I'm gonna say that's not going to work because that's how the Marine Corps is. It's a requirement. Yeah. The commanders all have to let you go to transition once, and you go in as a completely separate unit that runs all the transitioning. But just because it's out of their hands does not mean that it's the solution. Because as you said, it's command discretion if they send you again to get some extra knowledge. It's command discretion if you go to all these other things. Mm-hmm. So. And like you said earlier, you were in Korea and they sent you back, for just 30 days?
30 days before I got out. So,
and see, and you know what, 30 days, that's a perfectly fine amount of time to get everything done.
Every appointment was 30 plus days
and that's away. That's the issue, and they should have been like, okay, well, we're going to send you back. So you're now 60 days out from leaving to start your 30 days. Start calling and making your appointments. Right. Like getting things set so that when you land, you have 1 day. You're settled in. If you land on a Friday, you have a couple of days to get settled in. Okay, now let's go. Figure out where you have to go, what appointments you have. Have that whole list. There shouldn't be a day where you're sitting in the barracks room doing nothing. Yeah. You should at least have gotten to one person that day. That's critical to your success, getting in.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, with my transition, I was lucky I even got my medical records because those took 30 days, and I applied for them the first day that I got back, and luckily it came the day after, the day that I got out.
See, that's wild to me because I got mine within 2 days of requesting them.
Yeah.
But I was in that unit. I never had to transition somewhere else, so I can see where that would cause some issues. Honestly, so what's the solution to all this, though?
I mean, I just think the solution is to be. Obviously, we have these programs and they're set up, but there's got to be a better way about it. It can't just, I understand there's got to be a requirement, and I understand that being in the military, you have these missions that you have to complete. And that is a thing, 100%. But I just think there needs to be more of a focus on the well-being and taking care of people who were in, regardless of if they're getting out or not, you know? Obviously, getting kicked out is different, but you hit your ETS or you're getting medically discharged, Both of those things they're in your control, but honestly, you don't know what to do next for the most part because you've been in this one world and it's so much different from the civilian world. So I think there just needs to be a better structure in place to inform all of our military members and even veterans, honestly, because a lot of people don't have the information that they need or know even where to look. So it's got to be a point where we're going to make sure that, hey, we know you're getting out. You need to do this, and you need to like actually comprehend and understand what this is and where to find this information.
See, and that's a policy thing. And yes, changes to policies like making sure that you're doing X, Y, Z before you get out. That is phenomenal and needs to happen. And that's part of what this podcast is for. And we're going to talk in the next episode about policies that are going to drastically affect the veterans and how they can change and where at least us three would like to see them change.
Yeah.
But I personally think the best solution for right here and now is, and we've seen it, veterans talking to other veterans.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, here's what I know, but here's the place to go find the correct in-depth, like this is black and white, this is what it is knowledge. Because I can tell you all I want about vocational rehab, but the same thing I told you, I'm like, go talk to them. They will tell you the exact stuff. I'm just telling you what I've perceived and what I've gone through, but it can change. So to me, that is the solution for transitioning until policy can get fixed to change that.
Yeah, and that's where I think LinkedIn comes in huge right there. Because I mean, you being able to talk to somebody who's already out and has already went through the process, you know all the good things and you know all the bad things that they had to deal with. Whether some of those things may be true or not, that's fine. That's up for you to decide. But just being able to have the experience that somebody else already went through, I think is a huge thing. And it'll help you in your transition for sure.
Having them guide you like, hey, I don't know the answer, but here's a VSL I know that can help you. Because as you said, you have one on speed dial. Like having somewhere to go and knowing where to go. Because I remember the statistic, 40% of veterans, the rate of suicide increases in veterans by 40% if they don't come out and immediately know where their community is at.
Yeah.
And that was a statistic from the VA, if I'm citing them correctly.
What do you think, Danny?
Damn. No, I like the, here in Parkville, we have the DAV just down the street. Like, I worked for the casino. I met that one guy, but before the casino, I met this one couple when I was working for a fast food chain here. And they took me to a couple DAV meetings, and it was nice to be around, people that went through similar experiences. But at the same time, it was kind of disheartening because everybody there was above the age of 50. Mm-hmm. And it's like,
I mean, that's why no one goes to that's why we don't see young veterans in American Legion or not. It's because we don't think we rate.
It's like, we need to. We need to get involved. The statistic that you just said, it's like, we need to be able to get involved. We need to be, because if we don't, if we don't, eventually it's not going to be a thing. Mm-hmm. They're going to die. It's a cold fact. Yeah. But we need to be able to get involved with these groups. We need to be able to get involved and with each other, and to be able to sit down and have these dialogues, even if it's over one spaghetti dinner a month, for $3.99.
Family dinner from Blue Bloods every Sunday.
But we need that. For me, when I was working for the casino, it was that one guy who came in every Saturday, sat at the same machines every Saturday, so we just had this dialogue. Every week he would check in, every week I'd talk to him, started finding other vets, and we had this weird little vet talk area at the casino.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we see it on campus, the community. I've seen more and more veterans are starting to come into the Global Warrior Center, still not we're busy every day. I would love to see it at that point. But the community is growing, and it's like we said, networking is important. Yeah. To sit there and keep that community growing and have that connection. We see it with other nonprofits. We got the Veterans Community Project. They have tiny homes. Literally all veterans and their families right there. Irreverent Warriors. We see it Silky's Hikes with all the veterans. Yeah. Vet TV. That sense of community comes from networking and getting out and transitioning properly.
Well, and I think the toughest part when it comes to transitioning, honestly, is just when you get into the civilian world, it's so different, and you've had this type of bond and connection with people that when you get out, you just feel lost. You feel like you don't have anybody to talk to, regardless of if you're in a relationship, married, whatever. Like, you just feel like you're stuck and you have nowhere to go.
Because no one understands.
You're in your own head.
Level.
Yeah, because no one besides the people who you were with know what you went through. That's what you feel like, you know? There are people who can help, and like there are people who are willing to help. But the problem is, like, when you get out, you just feel so stuck and you feel so in your own head to where it can drag you down a rabbit hole. It really can. So I think it needs to be a focus to be able to have veterans get out and not feel like they're stuck, not feel like they're alone.
And that comes with knowing where your community is.
Yeah.
Having a better, more developed plan. You don't have to have a job right when you get out. You don't have to have everything in a row. But having a plan does not make that you're going to be successful.
Right.
And so knowing like, hey, I'm getting out. I'm going to be going to live with this person and they can help support me.
Right.
And so be like, okay, I'm living here. I'm getting on my feet. My brother-in-law, him and my sister, when he got out, moved right back into my parents' basement until they got their ducks in a row. And it's not like he didn't have a job or anything, but their plan was to save and get a house.
Right.
So I think we need to spend more time when they get out, and this is back to policy, developing that plan more, along with that comes down to talking to people, getting all your ducks in a row, figuring out exactly how you can get out and be the best civilian version of yourself.
Right.
Yeah, and I know this is paperwork, but it would be really nice for transitioning. I'm guard. I don't know how y'all do it, but it'd be really nice to have some, presentation or whatever, where these different groups in your local area come in that from the civilian side, hey, you're leaving, so let's have these people run the DAV. These people are the American Legion. This person runs the butcher shop down the street. They're all here for you and want to talk to you.
But we had that, but it was one person saying, hey, we're here to help you with your VA claim.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like here's where your community is.
Yeah.
It'd be nice
Because
to be able to
each
show the
state's different.
community.
But that's the thing. Now, you can't do that while you're in a sense of for everyone, because at least for us, we got people. I was getting out. I'm from Georgia. I moved to Kansas City. I knew people that are staying in California, going to New York, Washington, Texas. It's all over. So you can't be like, here's where your community is.
Yeah.
I think that's a separate thing that you need to figure out on your own. But getting the tools to find out where your community is essential.
Oh, for sure. Because they did have a very similar thing to what you were talking about. They had somebody come through where they were like, hey, we'll help you. And like, this is a little breakdown. But when it came down to it, obviously, I was stationed in Texas and I moved to Kansas City. So, like when it comes along those lines, I think more on the National Guard and Reserve part, that could be more effective. But when it comes to being active duty, unless you're planning on staying in the area, I think it's very tough to really put that in place. Honestly, because the majority of people are going to leave. Because where the bases normally aren't very.
Honestly, if you want to find just a brief number count of how many veterans are living in that area, it can give you an age demographic. Pull the recent census survey. Pull ACS or ASC, whatever it's called.
ACS, yeah.
But it might not be that beneficial to you, but it'll tell you like, hey, this is a heavy populated area with veterans, or it's not at all. I guess I'll give you a rough estimate, but that really isn't a good solution, I guess.
Yeah. And I think when it comes down to it, I think the transition can either be good or bad, but I think realistically, you kind of have to make it your own. We're going to have to wrap it up today, but stick with us. We're going to be continuing and discussing all types of topics. We're here to help you along the way. That's our main goal. That's what we're shooting for. And that's the whole point of this podcast.
We want to talk to you.
Even if it's just telling you about the struggles that we faced, gives you an insight of what could possibly happen.
Absolutely. So join us next time, and we'll see y'all later on Park University's Outside the Wire podcast. Thanks.
Toodles.